Hi everyone. Whew, I have been running around crazy busy with work, travel. The last couple of weeks seems like has just been kind of chaotic, and I've fallen behind on my reading and on lots of other things. But what I did manage to find time to do last weekend was see a couple of operas. These are a couple of small, relatively short operas. So what I saw was The Seven Deadly Sins by Kurt Weill, and then that was paired, there was a short intermission, and then we saw Pagliacci by Ruggero Leoncavallo. Usually I think Pagliacci is paired with a different opera, is my understanding. But I think it worked really well being paired with The Seven Deadly Sins. It just because what I think they both operas really I think in my interpretation sort of illustrated a certain duality, and I'll talk more about that through the operas. So I'm going to do two different videos just because of time. So I'll do this video. I'm going to chat a bit about The Seven Deadly Sins because that was the first one that was shown on October 9th, and then I'll do another video on Pagliacci. So here is the playbill from the production that I saw. I saw this done by Virginia Opera, and it was performed at George Mason University's Concert Hall in Fairfax. Here is the cast for both. I'm not going to read it out just because of time, but you can see there who is who. The conductor was Adam Turner, and the director was Keturah Stickann. Hope I pronounced that right. So yeah, The Seven Deadly Sins. I wasn't familiar with it. I think I had vaguely heard of it at some point, but what the story is about is really about this young woman, Anna, actually is two characters on stage. So we see two Annas. There's Anna 1 and Anna 2, but they're actually two halves, they're two aspects of the same person. So there's only one really individual, but represented on stage and represented musically as two, and also choreographically because Anna 2 is a dancer. So our story is set in Louisiana in the United States, even though this opera, I believe, was originally written in German. The production that I saw was in English. It's set in Louisiana in kind of the 1930s, and so something has happened, and we're not exactly sure what, but Anna, this young woman, Anna 1 and Anna 2, are about to set out to try to make some money at the urging of her family, so that is sort of sets the stage for what happens. So then she then proceeds from town to town and encounters each of the seven deadly sins. So I mentioned her family, and I think her family, really serves as sort of a Greek chorus in a way. They narrate some of the scene, some of the action is narrated by her family, and I think very interestingly, all the members of her family are male voices. So I thought that was interesting, and I'll speak more about that in a moment and during the kind of the final wrap up. But what the opera is ultimately about is Anna sets out then to make money, and the first place her family actually. The first sin that is discussed is sloth, because her family, basically is singing to her, don't be lazy. Anna's always kind of been lazy, and so we hope she's not lazy, and we hope that she'll work hard and and succeed. Obviously she is not being lazy. She's actually, setting out to try to make this money for the entire family in order to build a new house. We don't actually know what's why the house is so important. Maybe they've lost their house, but that's what her goal is, to make the money to go back to Louisiana and build a new house. So then the next, she travels on, and she goes to Memphis, and Anna too is sort of this dreamy-eyed dancer, and innocent, and Anna 1 is sort of the more intellectual, sort of like maybe straight, firm-headed, like she's just clear-headed, she's very rational, and Anna 2 is more of like the dreamer, artistic type, and ultimately in Memphis, the second deadly sin that is talked about is pride, and Anna needs to dance in a burlesque kind of cabaret, and Anna 2 doesn't really want to do this because she wants to dance artistically, but Anna 1, the kind of the rational one, says, yeah, but you don't make money that way, you need to make money. So ultimately Anna 2, she doesn't have any money, so she has to give up her pride and sort of dance in this burlesque house, this topless burlesque house. Then the third, and the Annas actually leave, and they wind up out in California, and so Anna's auditioning for movies and such, and so she comes across a person who's being abused by maybe a casting director, someone like that, and she defends this person out of anger, and that is the next sin, is anger, and that almost gets her fired, and so Anna 1 has to remind her, you can't interfere with this kind of thing because you need the money, and you can't react to everything that makes you angry because you she tells Anna 2, because you'll lose your job ultimately. So, ultimately they leave. They don't leave yet. The next sin that they encounter is gluttony. The family chorus back in Louisiana is singing, Anna's got this contract that if she gains a single pound, she will lose this contract and she'll lose the money. And so Anna 2 is just, very hungry, but she won't even eat an apple in the production I saw because, she doesn't want to gain this pound. The family's fretting over, because they say Anna always did like to eat, so we hope she doesn't, succumb to gluttony and lose this contract. So ultimately the Annas leave. The next time we encounter them is around the sin of lust, and Anna 1 is actually fallen in love with this poor guy Fernando, meanwhile Anna 2 is she's the mistress of a wealthy man, and being sort of a kept woman. So both the Annas, Anna has to convince the other Anna to give up Fernando, because even though it might be true love, they can't afford to be sharing their money with this penniless person. And so ultimately, the Fernando is given up, and Anna continues on with her wealthy married man, which brings us to the next sin we encounter, which is avarice and greed. And the family again is singing about Anna. They see her in the newspaper. She's become kind of this socialite where she has apparently caused the financial ruin of some men, including a suicide. And so they worry that her greed has gotten the best of her. And so they worry about that. And then finally, the last sin that we encounter is envy, and that this is Anna envying other people's happiness because she realizes she cannot be happy like them, because she will never be happy like them until she can really just remove herself from any kind of pleasures from the world, because it seems like through her experience, this is what she's learned. She can't really win. She does end up at this, as the opera ends, this little short 45 minute opera. They are back in Louisiana and they have earned their money, but the question that we the viewers sort of left with is but at like what cost? So, my experience with the opera, though, the takeaway on that was this duality. This idea of duality. Anna is presented to us right off the bat as a dual person, this duality of kind of good Anna, bad Anna, but they're both good and they're both bad in a certain way, in their own ways, but they're aspects of the same person. But this conflict between the two Annas is sort of a dualistic conflict of each individual, actually. And then this idea of the family being all male and being this sort of this chorus. I thought that was real interesting, and I don't know if that was intended by, the original composer or not. I believe the role of the mother was always written as a bass, so I think it probably was. But I viewed this as sort of like this patriarchy, this sort of like society, sort of pushing Anna out to do these things to make money, but then Anna really, she can't win, because if she commits one of the sins, then she is she really can't help but commit one of the. She really can't help if she is she doesn't commit the sin, then she's committing the sin in a way. I hope that makes sense. So for example, lust. So she's using sexuality to make money off of this wealthy guy, and then she's also physically attracted to Fernando, so that lust, if she went with that would be the sin of lust. And it could also be the sin of lust, sort of to use sexuality to, you're using lust. Actually, she was using lust to get money from this man. So this sort of duality of the sins, where Anna found herself in a predicament with each one of these sins, where she was being really forced into a situation by the choir, by the family, by society, to engage with that sin, either on on some level. So I thought that was very, very interesting. So, I think I'll leave the commentary at that. It was, like I said, a very short little 40-minute opera slash. It almost, I read up, it is sort of could be considered a song cycle, and it did kind of feel like maybe a staged song cycle. But to me, it was very good, and had a great storyline. The music to it was actually quite good, and I didn't really discuss that here, but the music actually took us on this journey with the Annas, and so I got a lot from the opera, and I'm really glad I got a chance to see it, and I thought it worked really well with Pagliacci, which I'll talk about in the next video, so stay tuned for that. Thanks a lot. Bye.